Hi, it's Ashley from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and welcome back to my channel where I make a lot of cake and cookie decorating tutorials as well as give a lot of baking business tips. And today is day 3 of the 12 days of Christmas cookies, where I show you 12 different things that you can do with the exact same dough. So if you want to see how I make this dough, you can check out this video in the right hand corner. Now I'm taking the dough, and what's great about this technique is I don't actually have to chill it before I place them into these molds. And you can do this with 2 circular cookie cutters as well, but I like the donut mold because then you get this really kind of nice puffed out shape. It's kind of like a wreath donut, if you will, but of course it's made with cookies. After our donuts bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for approximately 14 minutes or so, they come into the oven, let them fully cool, and then I'm dipping them into some candy melt with a little bit of flavorless oil added to that because you don't want it to be too chunky. So anything like a coconut oil or a vegetable oil will work for this. I'm using dark chocolate for that, a little bit higher of a quality of dark chocolate for those ones. Really, it is up to you. Then I'm going ahead and I'm doing this with royal icing today, but you could do this with buttercream if you prefer that. But of course, if you are going to be using royal icing like I am, you are going to get that really nice crust on top, so these will be stackable afterwards. And the secret to making sure it's nice and whipped enough is a lot of meringue powder so that we can make these beautiful shapes. And here is the French tip that I'm going to be using. I actually did a few different variations of the wreath, but for some reason I only hit record on one of them. This look though is by far one of my favorites because it just looks so nice and puffy, and I love the swirls. And I'm using a bit of a damaged French tip, but it really doesn't change the quality of it that much. You can also use a 1M tip for this or whatever other tip that you would like, and using that circular motion you're going to be able to create a beautiful wreath. And then I'm going ahead and adding on my sprinkles. I love using the nonpareils for this, which are like the spherical ones. You can also use shiny ones. Using varying sizes and different colors looks really good on this. By the way, to get this color of green, I added a little bit of leaf green and a little bit of lemon yellow. That just brightens up that green just a little bit. You can do this next part with fondant or modeling chocolate, whichever you prefer. I always find that if my modeling chocolate or my fondant is too hard to work with, I like to add a little bit of shortening to it. I also find that when I add shortening and it's just the right texture, I don't need to add any cornstarch. And if you're new to making fondant bows, this pastry cutter will be a time saver. It really just makes sure that everything is nice and even. Also, the trick to making a bow is making sure that your fondant is not too dried out, which is why we add that shortening in there. It's nice and pliable and it doesn't stick to everything either. So we just kind of fold in both sides, and then I go ahead and I cover that center bit, so we're covering up all those messy parts where it actually conjoins together, and then I just kind of pinch off the excess fondant off the back. I originally intended for some of the wreaths not to have a bow, but I found that after I kind of placed it on there, it looked so good that I needed to make a bow for every single one of them. And the placement really does matter, so play around with things a little bit. And I also did add on a little bit more royal icing underneath that bow because of course the royal icing has hardened a little bit. You can just leave the bow as is like that, or you can also add on the little tails. And in order to do that, all you're really going to do is you're going to slice pieces of that fondant into strips, and then you're going to create little tails. And when you're putting those on, you want to make sure that you place them down first, and then you go ahead and you put your fondant bow on over top. I always like to give it just a little fold at the very top of the tail, and then that way it kind of looks like it's all gathered together in a bow. Now, this is a lot of decor on one cookie, but this is why I use the donut mold, because it creates a much thicker cookie. And of course, if you do want to reduce the amount of icing on there, you can always use a smaller tip. That way it'll be a much flatter wreath, but it'll still look just as beautiful, just not as puffy. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading every single day for Vlogmas, so be sure to come back tomorrow so that you can see what I'm going to do with this dough next. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys. Bye!